Shalom Akim. All praises, glory, and honor be unto Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Double honors unto the apostles of GMS, the true leaders of the nation of Israel on earth today. And salutations to you Akim who out there on the four corners of the earth that do this work in truth and sincerity, risking your lives and your freedom to do so. And salutations to you few righteous sisters out there who are watching and learning. All right, to the elect. Shalom. It's going to be a reading from the book of Esther, the 16th chapter in the Apocrypha. And then we may call this, the history of the third kingdom. So you have to remember that the nation of Edom omitted the history of the third kingdom away from the Bible and away from its Christianity, away from its doctrine of discovery. Because the Apostle Tahar brought that out a couple weeks back in the form of a sit down, and it also was revealed in the movie of Nat Turner, The Birth of a Nation, that when Nat Turner was teaching his people in order to calm them down because of the horrible conditions that they were in, that he was teaching the doctrine, which is the doctrine of discovery. And the doctrine of discovery is a pure white supremacist doctrine, so-called white, because there's no such thing as white people. But they were calling themselves white come the 1700s. They started doing that. But they referred to themselves as Christians, knowing that they weren't. And it's too much evidence to prove that Christopher Columbus knew that the people over here in the Americas were the so-called lost tribes of Israel. And they also knew that the so-called Negroes that they were taken from the west coast of Africa were the people from the kingdom of Judah, which made up Judah, Benjamin, and Levite, and the Levites who came out of who fled into Africa, into the interiors of the west coast of Africa and North Africa during the Roman siege. All right, you can find that history in Rudolph R. Windsor's book around page 85. It actually gives you a detailed historical account of when the darker tribes of the nation of Israel fled into Africa to blend in, to hide from Roman persecution. And then they set up kingdoms all along the west coast of Africa. And more proof of that is on French maps from the 1800s. They refer to West Africa as Negro land, and they actually had a fort there called Fort Judah and Fort Benjamin, and if I'm not mistaken, there may have been a Fort Levi too. So it'd just be strange that a bunch of Africans just decided to call themselves Benjamin, Judah, and Levi. Okay, but this is first Esther. This is Esther, the 16th chapter out of the Apocrypha, starting at verse 1. It says, "The great Artaxerxes unto the princes and governors of the children of Salakia of the 127 provinces from India unto Ethiopia, unto all your faithful subjects greeting." So this was by far the biggest kingdom at the time, and the Greek kingdom, the kingdom of the Greeks of Alexander hadn't rose up yet or into power. Okay. I'm sure the Macedonians were around and they were growing, but they hadn't taken over. Artaxerxes and the Persian Medes were still in power at this time. Okay, and it was greeting to his subjects, and you have to understand that Israelites were in all these 120 provinces from India unto Ethiopia. And if you look at a map from India unto Ethiopia, is a huge amount of land that they controlled. Okay, a huge amount of land, and in those provinces they controlled everything, and there were Israelites among all those provinces. As a matter of fact, let's go to the book of Mark. Actually, let's start at Acts. This is the book of Acts, the 2nd chapter, the 5th verse, and it says, "And there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven." Okay. And I'm going to jump down to verse 9. And it's just giving you, places where they were coming from. So remember, the subject matter are Jews. Because they'll read all these provinces and all these places they came from and try to say that that's the Gentiles. No, that's that discovery doctrine. That's that doctrine of discovery, the white supremacist lie doctrine. All right, and that's exactly what it is. All right, but it says Parthians and Medes and Elamites. Those were from the lands we just read about Nestor. He said from India to Ethiopia. So these were all dark, dark people. Okay, and you have to remember that the Israelites were mixing and mingling and breeding and intermingle with these people. So how would these Israelis be the Israelites today? I mean, it's almost funny, man. It's pathetic. People like James White and Vocab Malone and these so-called historians, and then when you go to these biblically based websites, they show you all European nations being the Israelites. It's hilarious, man. It's hilarious. It's a pathetic attempt. But anyway, it's at verse 9. Parthians and Medes and Elamites and dwellers of Mesopotamia and Judea and Cappadocia and Pontus and Asia. All right, Phrygia and Pamphylia and Egypt and parts of Libya. So that's, you know, Egypt, and then Libya sits. There's a war going on in Libya right now. Libya is still called Libya. All right, that was the land of Put. Those were Hamites. But there were Israelites and other people mixed among them even back then. Okay? Cyrene and the strangers of Rome, Israelites were in Rome, Jews and proselytes, Cretes and Arabians, we do hear them speak in their own tongues. And there's another account in Mark, the 3rd chapter, which is pretty much the same thing. You know what? Let's just get it. Okay? And all this is coming out of Esther. Okay, this is Mark the 3rd chapter, starting at verse 7. Read verse 7 and 8. It said, But Yahushua withdrew himself with his disciples to the sea, and a great multitude from Galilee followed him, and from Judea, and from Jerusalem, and from Idumea, and from beyond the Jordan, and they about Tyre and Zidon, a great multitude, when they had heard of what the great things he held, came unto them. So the people of those nations weren't coming. It was the Israelites of those nations. What profit was there for someone of Tyre or Zidon, or one from Idumea, to come and listen to Yahushua, unless they were Israelites? All right? Okay? Back in Acts, the 2nd chapter, starting at verse 14, all right? Okay, this is when Peter began to address the crowd of people early spoken of. All these Israelites from all these different places from around the known world at the time. These men of Judea. Because most of them were Jews. There was some northern kingdom mixed in among them, but the majority of the northern kingdom was here in the Americas already. Okay? So these were mostly Jews, meaning the kingdom of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. All right? Verse 14 in Acts 2 and 14. But Peter, standing up with the 11, lifted up his voice and said unto them, and see, the reason he lifted up his voice is just like when you hear the brothers on the highways and the byways around the world, around America, and on the four corners of the earth, when they're teaching his truth, as supposed in the Bible, they're lifting up their voice loud like a trumpet. I believe that's Isaiah 58 and 1, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure that's it. Why? Because they had to speak to great multitudes. The same way that it gives you the description of the Lord with his dark skin, his woolly textured hair, with his gray white but woolly and textured hair, and his dark skin, and how he had a voice of many waters, because he had to speak loudly, because there will be thousands of people there. Okay, same thing with now. You're speaking on the highways and byways. So if you're not inside of a church, all comfortable, with perfect air conditioning, perfect heat, you have to speak to crowds of people over the noise of outside, over other conversations, over sirens, over whistles and horns and all that noise. You have to speak. Okay? So you get that. But Peter, standing up with the 11, lifted up his voice and said unto them, Ye men of Judea, and all ye that dwell in Jerusalem, be this known unto you, and hearken to my words, for these are not drunken as you suppose, seeing that it is because of the 3rd hour, because it is the 3rd hour of the day. This is which was spoken by the prophet Joel. So the Joel didn't speak to anybody but Israelites. Peter's quoting Joel. And remember, the subject matter in chapter 2, verse 5, are Jews. So just because I read all those many lands, these were Jews that came from those lands. Some, a detail that they seem to leave out of churches. And I imagine the scoffers that are going to scoff on this video, they won't even get this far to get those facts. When they hear anything about only the Israelites, they're automatically just going to shut down and start putting up their dumb, unjustified, unmerited comments. Okay? Because they can't contend with knowledge and with truth. So they have to scoff and make fun and tell lies and use vulgar language and just stupid stuff. All right. But it said this was spoken by the prophet Joel. And it shall come to pass that in the last days, saith Yahweh, I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. And on my servants and on my handmaidens I will pour out in those days of my spirit, and they shall prophesy. All right. And there shall be wonders in heaven above, the signs of the earth and beneath, and blood and fire and vapor and smoke. And those things are happening. You got the blood moons, all these crazy things happening in the sky. You have to understand that 1,000 years to us is only one day to the Lord. So it's been the latter days, the end of days, ever since this time. And so it's been almost 2,500 years, and the Lord said he was going to return in the third day. Guess what? It's the third day. And all these things are happening. Okay? And it says, the sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great notable day of Yahweh. All right? And it shall come to pass that whoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be saved. All right? And they'll use that line to say whosoever. The subject matter was the Jews, the Israelites, who the prophet Joel was talking to. Joel wasn't talking, because it's clear in the Old Testament that the Old Testament was for the Israelites, but they'll try to say in the New Testament it's given unto the Gentiles. Israelites in the Gentile state of mind. It's an easy thing. All you have to do is a little research. When you look up the word Gentile, it was often exchanged with the word Hellenista. In most places where Hellenista or Greek is, Gentile or Greek was, you would often get the word Hellenista or Hellenist. And when you look those words up, it clearly told you that those were Greek-speaking Jews, Israelites, man. You can't get around this truth, man. I don't care what you're saying, how much it hurts your feelings. Verse 22. Ye men of Israel, hear these words, reconfirming the subject matter in 2 and 5. So I'm going to read 2 and 5, but then 2 and 21 and 22 again. And there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven. In same chapter, verse 21. And it shall come to pass, whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be saved. Ye men of Israel, hear these words. This truth has nothing to do with any other nation or any other people. All right? So I'm going to keep this lesson short, because I'm going to break this chapter down in parts. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read just some key highlighted parts in it, and then go to the precepts that I've prescribed. So with that, I hope this video was edifying. All right, and to the elect out there, the hopeful elect, and the people that are earnestly trying to learn, Shalom.